Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much that you're here. It's awesome that you signed up. It's awesome that you came to destroy your inner multitasker and learn about these 10 changes. I'm really excited to share these with you today and go through this with you. This is my first live webinar, so I'm super nervous, but if you have any questions or if I screw up anywhere, just pop something in the chat and I'll take a look at it and hopefully take it from there and instantly correct it from there. But we should be good. So you're right here right now. If you tend to get distracted easily, or you at least know there's some improvement, some room for improvement for you to be less distracted and to focus more on the work that's right in front of you. And if you just want to be a little more focused, and also if you want to learn about the science behind multitasking and how that actually happens in your brain and what's going on there, then you've come to the right place today. Now, my name is Nick. You all know me, niklasgurke.com. You've probably been on my blog before or gotten some of my emails before, or maybe you signed up from Twitter. Either way, I'm glad that you're here, and I'm excited to do this training with you today. Again, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat, and I will now switch to share my screen because I have some really cool slides that I want to show you. And let's do a screen share, entire screen share. And let me know real quick if you can actually see my screen, if that works. Hide here. Can everyone see my screen now? Yep, works. Okay, see it. Yes. All right, sounds good. Seems like we're golden. All right, folks, let's roll. Again, welcome, Destroying Your Inner Multitasker. I want to show you 10 changes that you can make today to focus on the work that's right in front of you. And as I said before, these changes, most of them are super, super easy. You can do them almost instantly and implement them within a few minutes, and you'll be set. Now, the way I want to do this actually is basketball style. I should have worn my Chicago Bulls hat instead of the BMW hat. Anyways, this is what the game plan looks like. I want to do this in like a basketball game. First quarter, we're going to talk about multitasking versus single tasking and the slam dunk strategy. Second quarter is mental multitasking, stop thinking and pass the ball, because in a basketball game, you're not going to have a lot of time to think about stuff. You're just going to have to do, and it's actually the same when you work. Now, third quarter, we're going to talk about your physical workspace. That is the second level where multitasking often happens, setting up the court, so to speak. And in the fourth quarter, we're going to talk about digital distractions or ignoring the scoreboard, because in a basketball game, if you spend all your time looking at the scoreboard, well, you're not going to be busy shooting and actually scoring points. And so let's get right into it. But I have a few housekeeping things first, really, really quick. The replay of this will be available. I'm going to leave it up until Friday, I think, and you'll get a link to that. And you can watch it at any time. Go through it at your own pace. Skip the tech mishaps from the beginning. Just watch it again. Secondly, there's no paid software involved in this. I'm going to point you to free resources at any time. There will be premium versions of some of the apps, but the free ones will do. Thirdly, I'm on a Mac. I know people use Windows. They're on Windows. And I'm going to point you to the alternatives when we get there. Fourth, number 4, I want you to have fun with this, and I want this to be fun. So if you ever fall asleep in between, I'm going to pop into the chat every now and then just to take a quick peek. Unfortunately, I don't have several screens. That's why you're going to see me switching maybe. And then lastly, I want you to take action. I think action is the most important part. Action is the cure to anything. So whatever you do with the stuff that you learned on this webinar, please take action on it. All right. Now, I highly advise you to stick around to the end because, as I said, I'm going to make an awesome announcement. And you can also share this thing if you like what you see. Just hit one of those share buttons on the side and let your friends know. Maybe they might join. And my goal for the day is I want to give you more awesome tools to do the work that you need to do. Because who else am I going to quote here? Michael Jordan. If you do the work, you get rewarded. There are no shortcuts in life. And my goal is to help you be better able to actually do the work. Now, a little bit about my story with multitasking. Maybe some of you have seen this before, but it's a really good example of why you shouldn't do it. You can probably already guess just from this picture where this is going. This is a pretty common view that you have when you drive along a road in Germany. This is the road that leads to the little village where my parents live. And this is the screen, the snapshot of the view that I had or should have had when I was driving there that day. But I was actually looking at this. I was looking, this picture is staged. I have to admit, I have my sister's boyfriend do it because I wasn't home. But this is pretty much what it looked like. I had my iPod in my hand. I was browsing through music. I was trying to find what song to play next because I hook up my iPod to the stereo in the car. And I wasn't looking. And while I wasn't looking, I noticed that somehow the car started shaking. And that was because one of the tires had gone off the road and onto the grass right about here. Now, that's not a very pleasant feeling to have if you've ever, I don't know, been in a car crash or close to having a car crash. That's not a very good feeling. And I noticed the car, as I said, shaking, starting to wobble, and just instinctively I pulled the steering wheel to the left. And I got lucky that I didn't drive into the ditch that you see right about here. So I got really lucky with that. But I actually ended up driving into the oncoming traffic lane, the other one. So there wasn't any oncoming traffic in that moment. And I was really, really lucky that I was able to correct it because the car broke kind of loose. But that could have very easily ended in a total car wreck, crashing my parents' car. I don't know, maybe me getting hurt or even worse. I don't even want to think about it. But that's a very, very good example of multitasking. And that's the little things that we do every single day. And we tell ourselves, yeah, it's okay, I can do it, I can handle it. But when you're honest with yourself, you really don't. And it can go really, really wrong, really, really fast. Now, I've made some improvements. And to show you, I just want to show you how I spent one of my breaks. That was in a few weeks or 2-3 months ago. I was also at my home. This is the back porch of my parents' house. I was just sitting there, kind of meditating. That's how I spent my 5-minute break. Now, I decided to do 25-minute work blocks and 5-minute breaks a few months ago. It's called the Pomodoro technique. You probably heard me talking about it because I do it all the time because it's awesome. And that's how I spent my break, really, really just sitting there, focusing on my breath and enjoying the moment. And what I did with the rest of the day when I wasn't taking breaks is write a blog post. And I wrote a single blog post, and I wrote that in one go, in one day. And that's the blog post that got me on Productivityist, which is a really popular blog. It has about 100,000 visitors each month. And that's how I got on it, just by focusly writing away for a day. It's over 2,000 words long. And I'm not saying that to brag. I just want to show you single tasking is way better than multitasking, which you probably know, but there are definitely different results that you can get from this. And I just wanted to show that to you guys really, really quickly. Now, but why is multitasking actually so much worse than single tasking? Why doesn't it work? Well, to show you that and to show you what actually happens in your brain when you do it, when you do multitask, I want to show you a quote from someone I really, really like. This is James Altucher. You might have heard of him. He's an author, entrepreneur, writer, speaker, does a ton of things, but he blogs mostly at jamesaltucher.com. And James really likes to play chess. Now, James says that he sometimes plays chess when he's on the phone, and he'll play chess on the computer while simultaneously talking on the phone with someone. Now, what he says is that the non-phone version of me can beat the phone version of me 95% of the time. And how does he know that? How does he measure that? Well, the chess software that he uses tracks statistics. And he noticed that when he looked at the statistics when he was on the phone while simultaneously playing chess, that his performance in playing was about 3 standard deviations worse than his performance when he was not on the phone. So if he was to play against himself and one version of him would be on the phone and the other wouldn't, 95% of the time, the non-phone version would win. And why is that? Well, that's because when James is playing chess and only chess, his brain lights up roughly like this. His brain is fully engaged, it's completely lit up, and what happens in the brain is that the anterior part of the brain, which is the older part, that is the part of the brain that forms the goal or the intention. For example, I want that cookie. If you want a cookie, that's where the intention is formed. Now, the posterior part of the brain, where the prefrontal cortex is, which is right at the front of your forehead, and it's the newest, most recently developed part of the brain. This part is responsible for talking to the rest of your brain, so you actually reach out with your hand and grab the cookie. Now, this part also gives your brain feedback whether you actually have the cookie once you have it in your hand. Now, that's pretty straightforward, right? Anterior to posterior chain, anterior, goal, I want to do this, posterior, okay, I'm doing it, and you do the motions. Now, but when James adds in being on the phone, then all of a sudden he doesn't have just one task, he has 2 tasks to deal with. And 2 tasks, his brain lights up more like this. It's switching, and only one half is engaged at every given time, and then his brain switches back and forth. Now, what you have in this situation when you deal with 2 tasks simultaneously is you have 2 brain halves taking care of 1 task each. Now, that means instead of 1 brain at full power working on 1 task, you now have 2 less powerful brain halves spending shorter periods of time on more tasks. Now, you can already see why this can't possibly work out, because you have less brain power to use, shorter time spent on the task, and more tasks to deal with, right? So this is pretty, this already getting kind of obvious why this can't work. And let me just pop over to the chat real quick. Oops, see if you guys have any questions. Yes, this is being recorded, Aslam. Is there going to be a handout, Daryl? I can send you guys the slides. I'm not going to do a particular hangout, but you can watch the replay and take notes then if that's what you want to do. Okay, going on. So 2 tasks. Now, actually, I have a question for you guys. So what do you think happens when you add in 3 tasks? So let's say James was playing chess and on the phone, and he was maybe also writing down something on a, I don't know, tab or on a piece of paper. What do you think would happen when you add in a 3rd task? Like, what does that look like? Any ideas? Laura says, decent explanation. Brain is ridiculously complicated. Yes, it is. Oh, Laura, you're a doctor. Oh, so we have a professional in the house, so I probably should be careful what I'm saying, right? Johan says probably horrible performance, which seems about right. The brain will switch faster, goes boom. Lubo, not bad. Total breakdown of at least one of the tasks. Yes, very, very good. Oh, thanks, Laura. She says I'm doing great. The brain will switch faster. Yes, so you guys guessed it, probably horrible performance, brain goes boom, total breakdown, totally true. All of this happens, and the way that looks like is there's been a study done by the National Institute of Health and Medical Research in Paris. So they had people do one task, then two tasks, then three tasks simultaneously. And the tasks were all about switching, all about letters. So they had to match letters, as in letters in the alphabet, in sequence. Then in sequence and in case, meaning if they are uppercase or lowercase letters. And then they added in a third task, making the letters different colors. And when they added in the third task, they noticed that people constantly forgot doing one of the tasks, and they made 3 times as many errors. So as opposed to just dealing with 2 tasks. So you see, if you add in a task, it gets worse exponentially, not just linearly, but it actually gets worse exponentially. So that was a really tough finding. And they also realized that people were 40% slower and due to the switching costs, which arise from having to switch even more between different tasks. Now, so why do we do it in the first place? Like, what's the satisfaction behind it, or why do we even multitask if most of us know, like instinctively, like your brain tells you this is not good. And for that, I want to make another analogy. I want to show you a picture. I want you to think of a juggler, a really good juggler. What does that look like to you? And if you're thinking of a good juggler, that probably to you looks something roughly like this. A guy who juggles many balls and doesn't drop a single one. And today, I want to challenge that view of a juggler a little bit, because I have a different idea of what a great juggler looks like and what a great juggler does. And I hope that by the end of this, you will too. Now, we all have jugglers in our lives. And the jugglers in our lives are the people who we see them at work. We sometimes bump into them. They're our friends, and they stay long at work. They do overwork all the time, and they still go out with their friends. At least they say so. Oh, every night I'm having margaritas, and they write a book, and they are getting married and having a kid, and they seem to do all these things. When in reality, that probably means they're not making progress on any of them. And when you really dig deep into it and ask them, well, how's your book coming along? They'll say, I've just written like a few pages, and you'll actually see that they're not getting so much done. But these people appear very productive on the outside because they just do so much, and they can tell you that they're doing so much. Now, the people at Stanford thought, well, don't multitaskers at least are good at something? Like there has to be some benefit to this, like at least if you're doing it for a long time, right? And there were 3 researchers doing the study, and they made 3 bets. They guessed, and they said, well, one of them said, well, I think multitaskers are probably really good at ignoring irrelevant information. So they're probably really good at filtering. And the second researcher had a different idea. And she said, well, these people probably have a good working memory. Like they can probably memorize more tasks than other people, maybe like 8, 9, 10 tasks, as opposed to the regular 6 to 7 tasks that we can remember. And the third researcher suggested that they are probably really good at switching, because if they switch so much, they probably use less energy for switching, so they might get better at that. Well, if you have any guesses and think about which researcher was right and what multitaskers are actually good at, I'll spoil the answer for you. They were wrong, and all 3 of them were wrong. So multitaskers were actually worse at all 3 of those things. So they didn't filter information well, they didn't have a good working memory, and they weren't good at switching tasks. So this was a pretty devastating finding, because it actually further proved, well, multitasking doesn't work on any level. And I had to research some more. I had to dig in some more, and I actually found something from the University of Utah that proved they are good at something. And guess what they are good at? Drunk driving. Now, let me explain. I will show you the next picture, which is this. Multitaskers are really good at drunk driving. And why is that? Well, the study at the University of Utah tested people when they were on the phone while they were driving. So they let people drive normally, they let people drive and text on the phone, They let people drive and talk on the phone, whether that's a handheld phone or a phone where they were using a hands-free, where they were using headphones. And then they also tested people who drove under the influence of alcohol. And as it turns out, the people who were on the phone in whatever form, whether that's handheld, free, or texting, they drove at roughly the same level of performance as the people who were driving at the legal blood alcohol limit, which I think is 0.08 in the United States. I'm not exactly sure what it is in the United States. In Germany, it's that's 0.5, I think, per 1,000, whatever the number is. So yes, multitaskers are really, really good at this. And what you see in this picture is I did some statistics. I looked at some statistics, and I found one that said at any given moment during daylight hours, around 8% of drivers are on a cell phone in one form or another. So that means that roughly every 12th car you see in traffic has a drunk driver at the wheel, which is kind of scary. So subjectively, just when I'm in traffic, I feel like it's even more people who are on the phone while they're driving. But yeah, this is what happens, and this is the world we live in. It's kind of a scary thought, but I thought it was a good analogy. So why do we still try to juggle? Well, the whole juggling thing is really, really emotionally satisfying. That's what multitasking does a great job at for us, because multitasking fulfills our emotional needs. And what that is, you have two kinds of needs: emotional needs and cognitive needs. And a good example would be you have to read a book for school, you have to read a chapter in a book, and that's definitely a cognitive need. But your emotional need might be that you want to have fun, because reading the book is boring and not that exciting. So you decide to, while you read the book, just listen to some music. So you put on some music and then you read your chapter in the book. Now, what happens is you fulfill your emotional need of having fun or enjoying yourself, but you're not really fulfilling the cognitive need of reading the book, because you're not really paying attention to what's in the book. And you might have to read it again and again and again. And that situation is very similar to what these guys in the boat are doing, because there's 2 holes in this boat and there's 4 people in it, 1 hole on each end. And while the guys on the lower end of the boat are still trying to get rid of the water and still figuring out what they're going to do about that hole on their end, the other guys on top, they stuffed their hole already, and they're sitting there and feeling pretty good about themselves and say, well, it's a good thing we stuffed the hole on our end already. Now, that's pretty good for them, but it's useless, because if the boat has 2 holes, the boat is still going to go down. And that's the same thing that happens with multitasking. So you might fulfill your emotional needs, but not your cognitive ones. So that's why I want to challenge your view of a good juggler today. And because I think you can do a great job at juggling, even if you're just juggling 1 ball. And I actually brought some proof, and it's this guy here. Look at that. I think that's amazing. It looks like the ball is floating, and he's just juggling 1 ball. So when you just juggle 1 ball, there's a ton of things that you can do with it, and it's really, really amazing. Now, before we get into the changes and we're going to dig into the really, really meaty stuff, I want to show you one great example of single tasking, who's a big idol of mine, and his name is James Clear. You might know James Clear. He blogs at jamesclear.com. He blogs about habits and willpower and self-improvement, things like that. And James has a very, very clear-cut single tasking policy, which is basically that he publishes an article every Monday and every Thursday. Now he just does Mondays. He switched a little bit ago. But usually he'll publish a new article every Monday and every Thursday on his blog. And he decided to do that back in 2012, about 3 years ago. All he's ever done is publish these articles. But every Monday, every Thursday, come hell or high water, he would press publish. And he was just focused on that. He didn't do any big promotions, SEO, no crazy social media. He just did that. And this strategy has led him to over 200 articles in the past 3 years, 200,000 email subscribers, and about 24 million unique visitors in 2014 alone. And I think that's pretty big of a single tasking success, and a great example of what you can achieve if you just focus on one thing and do it consistently again and again and again. And I'm just gonna have a sip of water. And James has actually inspired this whole talk that I'm proud to give to you today, because the slam dunk strategy that James uses to actually single task so much is called the environment of inevitability. You might have heard this term before, environment of inevitability. And what it is it's an environment that you design so well that it makes it inevitable for you to focus on the task at hand. Now, an example you could take would be this. If you had a kid and your kid ate candy all the time and you wanted your kid to stop eating candy, what would you do? Maybe you guys have some ideas. You can throw some answers in the chat. If you have any ideas, what would you do if you wanted your kid to stop eating so much candy? Laura says, remove the candy. Yes, and that hits the nail on the head, if you will. Put the candy jar where they can't get to it. Johan, perfect. Or use mouse traps in the candy bowl. Oh, Laura, I don't know about that one. It probably works really, really well, but you might have to spend some time at the hospital with your kid. Lubo, give him a carrot. All right, like that might work, but I don't know about you. When I was a kid, I wasn't too big into carrots. I am actually right now. We're doing, I often have carrot/apple juice because we have an awesome juicer at our place. Anyways, you guys were totally right. You hide the candy. So you don't put the candy right in front of the kid and say, no, you're not allowed to have the candy. No, you just lock away the candy. You remove access to it. And that's the same thing. You make it inevitable for the kid to actually not have candy. And that's the same thing that you can do with these changes that I'm about to show you. Because sometimes I get the question in my coaching, people say, well, I want to focus and I can always get started, but I just have got some more ideas. Replace the candy with raisins, replace it with colored earwax, eat it all, make the candy bitter. Actually, that's a good one, Winston. That works well for biting your nails. Anyways, the question I often get in my coaching is, well, I can focus for a while, but when I get home from work, for example, I'm really worn out, and it's hard for me to force myself to get on a task or get on a side project. How can I develop more willpower so I can actually force myself back on the task after I had some interruptions or after I've had a stressful day? And the answer to that really is that this question is a little in the wrong direction, because you don't need more willpower necessarily. What you really need is less distractions in the first place, so that it just becomes normal for you to be more productive during the time when you work, and not at the end of the day when you're already worn out and you've been distracted tons of times that you have to force yourself back on a task. Now, so to design an environment of inevitability, I will show you 10 changes, or actually one of two more. And I'll show you all of those live and take you through them one at a time so you can implement them right away. But first of all, I want to ask you guys, are you guys still with me? Did I put anyone to sleep? Did you guys learn something already? And yeah, if you're enjoying yourself, tweet this out, hit the share button. You can, for example, have an awesome hashtag, throw that in there, no more multitasking. Yeah, just let me know how you guys are doing. Always takes a little while for the chat to kick in. All right, Lubo's sound asleep. No, he's just kidding. Brain is fully present. I'm doing a good job. Oh, thanks, guys. Daryl says, I thought that more activities would be better for the brain. I'm not sure what you mean, Daryl, but you can ask me that question again in the Q&A part at the end. Currently failing, Q&A part at the end. Currently failing, I'm single tasking. As I will admit, I'm cleaning up my desk area too. Laura, wait for a second, because that's one of the changes that we're gonna do. So you're gonna have some time to clean up your desk as we do this. No multitasking, so no Twitter or whatever now during the webinar. Okay, John, you totally got me there. Fair point. John is spot on. 12 browser tabs open. Let's close a few before you really get to the core message. Actually, don't worry about the browser tabs, because I have plenty of browser tabs open right now just to take you guys through all of those. Awesome. You guys caught me. All right, you guys are all here. You're with me. That's awesome. Wonderful. So let's get to it. Okay, first of all, I want to show you this. Maybe you've seen this before. This is an awesome game, and I'll link to this on the page where I send out the replay. It's a multitasking game. And this is the perfect game to show yourself and to completely convince yourself that multitasking absolutely doesn't work. I'm just going to show it to you really quickly. It's the way it works is you get a task, and after a certain amount of time elapses, there's another task thrown in. So you have to deal with more and more tasks as the time passes. So now I'm already at 2 tasks. I have to balance this thing, and I have to deal with not being killed by those arrow thingies. Damn it. Now, usually I at least last until the 3rd task kicks in. Anyways, you can try that game for yourself. And I'm going to link to that in the resource section I'm going to send out. So first change number 1, and now we're on the mental level, the focus part. The very first thing that I want to show you guys is the collection bucket. And the collection bucket is an idea from the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. And it's sort of a brain dump, I want to say, for your thoughts. So if you work on something, let's say writing, because I write a lot, and that's probably the task that I spend the most time on. If you're writing and you suddenly get a thought, damn it, I have to buy some fruit, or I gotta get milk, or I gotta get toilet paper. Usually what happens is either you keep that thought in your head because you want to remember it. So you have to actually consciously remember it and make an effort to keep it in your head. Or what happens is that you forget it and you completely forget it. Now, if you keep it in your head, it will usually constantly nag you. I know that. Like, I can't remember that for 15 minutes while I'm still writing. So I'll have it in the back of my head sitting there. You gotta buy fruit, you gotta buy fruit, you gotta buy fruit. So a collection bucket allows you to get rid of that, but just by putting it in there. Buying milk, get more fruit. And this is a Trello board, Trello. That's a project management software, but that's actually what I use for my collection bucket. You can also just use the Notes app on your phone, or just use a piece of paper and a pen. But the point of it is, whenever you have an idea, a distracting thought, just jot it right down in your collection bucket. And this is one of the 3 biggest changes that I made that actually really, really helped me stay on task and not get distracted and deal with all the itsy bitsy teeny tiny details way later. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm really big on this. It's called pared down decisions. Now, pared down decisions is a concept from science where you kind of save willpower by making decisions once or automating them. And a great example of that is, some of you have probably already read this, the Barack Obama willpower hack. The president does this, and the way he does it is he will only wear suits that are either blue or gray. Now, when you Google Barack Obama, this is pretty much what pops up in the image search. And I looked at every single one of these pictures, and I went to it and zoomed in, and I checked, and it's right. He always has a black or a blue or gray suit. I literally checked every single one, gray, blue, and so on and so forth. And I bet he even has someone decide the color for him. And so he doesn't even have to actually pick a suit from his closet. So he'll probably there will be a suit lying there in the morning, and he'll pick that up and just wear that. Now, he also did that with his breakfast. He always has the same breakfast. He always works out at the same time every morning. And things like that, decisions like that are having your morning routine, for example. So you could say, as soon as you wake up, you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, then you drink a glass of water, and then you read for 10 minutes before you get up. And if you do that the same time over and over again, it just saves you precious brain power and lets you focus more when you work, because you automated that decision. You make it once and you never have to make it again. Just like bigger decisions, for example, never drinking alcohol or always running on Wednesdays. So these will be a few ideas of pared down decisions, because what they look like is you can think of it. You wake up in the morning and you probably have, just say a random number, 100 good decisions inside of you. Now, you can spend those really, really fast, or you can save them for the important things. And the analogy I always use is a soda machine. So imagine you have a soda machine in your head. In the morning, it's completely loaded. It's stacked up to the top. But as soon as you start making decisions, you pop out sodas and you spend them. And each time there's this little clunk noise. And if you wake up in the morning and you go like, what am I going to eat for breakfast? Am I going to have cereal or oatmeal? Am I going to put an apple in there or a banana? Am I going to use cinnamon or no cinnamon? Am I going to wear the blue shirt or the red shirt today? And so on and so forth. Your soda machine goes pop, 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 and you got clunk, clunk, clunk. Before you know it, all your good decisions are gone. By the time you arrive at work, you already feel super worn out, and you feel like you don't have it in you to make any good decisions at work. And now you can easily avoid that, for example, with a morning routine. Now, that's change number 2, pared down decisions. And the last and third change for the brain is listening to music. Now, that's a little controversial one, but I really like it, so I thought I'd show it to you guys. And the way it works is, I'm actually going to show you another cool tool for this in a little bit. You put on a song and you put that song on repeat. Now, it has to be one song or the same instrumental at least, in order for you to kind of put it onto the back burner and not focus on, for example, the lyrics. So usually it works way better with instrumental music. And for example, you could use classic music, or if you know a certain Beethoven or Bach song that you like, you just search that on YouTube. I like this song, for example, Lean On. That's one that I use. And you just put the song name plus 1 hour on YouTube, and plenty of people, they loop the songs. So this video, all these videos will just play for an hour, the same song over and over and over again. It really helps me to get into the zone. For you, it might be different, but it's something you can experiment with and just try. All right, category number 2, setting up your physical work environment. So Laura has already jumped the gun on this one. She's doing a great job. She is already doing this. You want your workspace to be clean. And this is the exact workspace that I'm sitting at right now. This is the desk that I'm sitting at. And you can see there are no distractions. There's a piece of paper with a pen, a calendar that my girlfriend made for me. And but other than that, there's not much there. There's no stacks of papers. There's no magazines. There's no, I don't know, dozens of cables for phones and whatnot. And this is ideally, there's a German saying, I think it's like a cluttered desk, cluttered mind or something. And I usually find it's true. The more cluttered the workspace is that you're sitting in, the more distracted you'll be. And it's easy to pick things up with the hand and just look at them. And yeah, so you want your desk or your working space to be as distraction-free as possible. Same with my desk. This is the desk in my room back at my parents' house. I took everything off there except for the lamp. So you really want it to be as neat and simple as possible. Now, change number 5, and also something to do with your environment. What you can do to be more productive is switch locations, because doing things in a new location has been shown to improve memory retention. So when you do something in a new workspace, first of all, you're more likely to remember what you're doing. And secondly, you just might need a change of pace, because at home it's distracting. Maybe it's too easy for you to go to the fridge and grab a snack and just be distracted eating. Maybe you need to try out a coffee shop or go to the library or whatever works for you. And now if you work at an office where you work, for example, in a cubicle, that might be more difficult, but there's even ways to do that there. For example, you could find an empty conference room and just sit there for an hour and do your work there. Or you could switch to a coworker's place if the coworker isn't in for the day, and maybe that space is closer to the window. You just say something, oh, I want some fresh air. You switch to their place. So there's always ways to make this work. But of course, it works better if you are self-paced, so to speak, and you can just work from home or from anywhere. Now, speaking of the coffee shop location, you can also use this tool here. This is called Noisly, Noisli.com, and it's a really cool tool. I'm actually gonna, I don't know if I can show this to you guys, but what it does is it creates a sound mix customized for your productivity or to relax. And you guys probably, wait, if I unplug my headphones, can you guys hear it? Let's see. Can you guys hear that? All right, Laura says yes. I think you guys get a little sample of that. All right, cool. Just wanted to show you, you can customize this thing. You can do a coffee shop, a fireplace, rain, wind, whatever works for you. And you can create a custom sound mix for you to be more productive or also to relax. So this thing is really, really great. I just found it. It's an awesome tool. Noisly, Noisli. Oh, please spell out the site. Yeah, John, I'll just put them in the chat. Trello.com and oh, Saray got the best of me. She was first, and Noisly.com. These are the two links. All right, let me turn this off. Okay. Now, it's sort of a halfway in between a change. I still listed it. It's removing obvious distractions. So you want to have kind of a study or a work zone. This is what mine mostly looks like. So if I'm not sitting at this desk, which I usually am not if I'm writing, I will sit on my couch and just put my laptop on there and start working. And there are no distractions in our living room. I should have taken a shot of that as well. We don't have a TV. We don't have an Xbox. Or we have no magazines lying around on the table. So just remove the distractions that are really easy to grab. For example, if you have a stereo and a TV in your living room, that's no problem. But you can always take your remotes and put them in a closet somewhere or hide them away, because it's so easy to grab the remote and just see what's on or look for some music or whatever that is. So as with the kid and the candy again, you just want to make your environment so that it's very unlikely for you to be distracted and not give yourself the chance to give into those distractions. It's the same reason, like the Pope wouldn't live in the Playboy Mansion, right? So he made a vow to be, what is that? Have an exclusive relationship just with God. So he wouldn't go to a place where he's surrounded by all these temptations. Also, the same reason why a coffee shop is much better than a sports bar, because a sports bar always has televisions and you're just going to spend a lot of time looking at them. So some maybe obvious ones, but I think it's still a good point to make. And now we get into the nitty-gritty, the digital ones, the big ones, the big distractors of the 21st century, all of the digital ones, phone and laptop. Now, the first one I want to introduce you to is called Self-Control app. And Self-Control app, I'm actually going to send out links. I'm going to put those links on. I'm going to create a resource doc or something for you guys and curate all of those resources again, so you easily have those. So you don't have to go through the replay and go to that part. So I'll do that. Oh, let me just make a note for you guys. So I do that. Resources. So self-control app is pretty cool. What it does is it blocks certain websites for you. For example, if I pick twitter.com and I want to say I want to block that, you can put in Facebook, YouTube, whatever else. You create a blacklist, and then when you press start, it's going to block this particular set. You have to enter your password, and it's going to block these sites. And now I shouldn't be able to go to Twitter. This webpage is not available. Boom, I can go to Twitter. And the cool thing about self-control is you see a timer down here. The cool thing about it is you can't turn it off. So there's no way for you to turn it off. I think you would have to reboot your computer, and maybe even then it's not turned off. I'm not 100% sure. But it's really, really tough to get around this thing. So this is a really, really good one. And self-control is just for Mac, but I'm going to show you the Windows alternative, which is called Cold Turkey. It's at getcoldturkey.com, and also I'm going to put that in the resource section. And it's very similar. I think it's basically the same thing. And it's also free. There's a free version. Both of these are free. And that's a good way to block yourself from distracting websites and those your go-to social media sites, whatever it is that you usually waste a lot of time on. Now, the second one for the laptop that I want to show you that's really huge for me, and it's been one of my top three, is called Alfred. Now, Alfred is this little cool tool for Mac. Just gonna refill my water here. It's a really cool tool for Mac that lets you directly access your stuff by giving you this launch bar. So you set a shortcut, and whenever you press that shortcut, this little thing here pops up. And what it does is it lets me go directly to a certain app. For example, if I want to start Google Drive, I just type in DR for Google Drive. Or if I want to start and go to the App Store, I just type in app, and it lets me go to the App Store. You can select what you want here and go directly to it. Now, why is this so useful? It also lets you go directly to files. So let's say I have to access a certain letter. Then that's this one. Briefekadu, this is a letter, that a translation that I made. If I want to go to that file, I can just directly access it from here. And now, why is that so much better than going through, let's say, the folder? First of all, it takes less time. And secondly, if I go to my Dropbox folder and I have to dig around here, it's super easy to get distracted. Like, there's a podcast interview here. I can listen to that. There's another one here. Or maybe this folder, I know there's something in there that needs my attention. So it's super easy to get sidetracked and just look at other things. And because there's so many things on your computer that want your attention, but Alfred makes sure that you just give it to the things that really deserve it. And on the side, you can also do cool things with it, like doing some math and copying these directly to the clipboard. And so it's really, really cool. Again, Alfred is for Mac, completely free. alfredapp.com, also going to be in the resources section. And the Windows alternative for this is called Launchy. And I just found this yesterday, but it's basically the same thing. Lets you directly access files and programs just by pressing a shortcut on your keyboard and then going directly to the application. And this is, again, this has been one of my top three. Alfred, I love this thing. Wouldn't change it for the world. Now, next one is starting your browsing sessions with a single tab. Now, we talked in the chat a little bit about tabs before. You know how it is. You always have 10, 12, 15 tabs open. And most browsers, or it's very easy to go to the settings and do this thing where you continue where you left off. These are your Chrome settings. If you're on Chrome, you can just create a new tab and then press Command and colon, and it'll take you right to the settings page, and you can adjust that right here. And for me, it's a specific Trello board. That's the only tab that opens when I open a new browser window or a new browsing session. Or you can just do new tab. Trust me, your tabs will increase naturally as you go along. So there's no need to start off where you left off, because having tons of tabs open, as in this case, for example, because I'm just showing you guys all these cool things, is really, really distracting. And it's very easy to, oh, let me read up, let me finish that article, let me do that. just start with one tab. Now, change number 10, and then I actually have 3 bonus changes, is number 10, inbox pause. This thing is worth gold. Like, I would pay for this. This is so awesome. What it does is it pauses your email inbox. So basically, it only moves your email to your inbox at certain times each day. So you just click pause, and I'll show you what that looks like. This is my inbox right now. So it says your inbox is currently paused. Messages will next arrive at 11 a.m. Or I can always click unpause. Now, what it does is it saves your email, but it doesn't move it to the inbox, and it just moves it to the inbox at the time you defined. And this thing is worth gold. I have mine moved to my inbox twice a day, at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's when I go in and check my email and process it all in one go. And then I go back to work. And all the time before that, I know there's nothing new in my inbox, so it's not even worth going there and checking it. And this thing is both available for Chrome and Firefox. It's at inboxpause.com. Try it out, give it a go. This thing is super, super brilliant. All right, so 3 bonus changes that I want to throw in for you guys. Number 11, remove all icons from your desktop. Now, I just want to show you, this is what my desktop looks like. Kind of cool wallpaper, focus, pretty fitting for the topic. Now, let's say you have a bunch of items sitting on your desktop. I think it's Command 3. Let me just create a few screenshots. Let's say it looks like this, or maybe it's even scattered around. I don't know. Some desktops look really messy. So what happens is when you look at it, it's really hard to figure out where you want to go. If your desktop is empty, you have to make a very, very conscious decision to actually go to a folder, go to a file, and then maybe use Alfred to go there. But if your desktop is just cluttered with items, it's really easy to also get sidetracked here. So what I did was I removed all of them. And technically, you could, of course, go through each and every single item and file it away properly. But let's face it, you don't want to spend that time. You don't want to do these things. That takes up a lot of time. So what you can always do is, just for starters, and you can do this right now, you can create a new folder, call it trash or whatever. And then you mark all your files, and then you just move them into one folder. And that's already a huge improvement. Like having one icon on your desktop is way better than having like 1,000. So that's already a huge step up, and that's really easy to do. And you can always access files directly by using Alfred, for example. Now, the next one is actually very similar to this one, and it lives on my phone. And this is my actual phone screen that I'm sharing on here right now. And the change is very similar because phones are very, very distracting. And of course, I was in a messaging app, but usually when my phone is locked, it looks like this. And when I unlock it, it looks like this. Another empty screen. And I did this simply by moving all of my apps one screen over. So if I swipe once, I can just have all my apps. And it's not about, I don't know, getting rid of your apps or anything like that. The thing is just when you open or you unlock your phone and you see this, it's about making a conscious decision again, because now I have to think, well, what did I want to do? I wanted to message my mom on WhatsApp. And then I go one screen over, I go to the folder, I go to WhatsApp, and that's actually what I wanted to do. Now, if I open my screen and I look at this, it's super easy to just check the messages button down here just because it's right there, right? Oops. Or just let me look at, I don't know, like my running stats or whatever it is. So it's really easy to get sidetracked. But when you look at an empty screen first thing after unlocking your phone, it makes it really necessary for you to make a conscious decision to actually decide what app you want to go to. And now, lastly, change number 13 is for your phone, just leave it in another room altogether. Like when you work, or for example, when you arrive at work in the morning, maybe you can put it in a locker. Maybe you can put it in a drawer of your desk and hide it there. Out of sight, out of mind is especially true when you're dealing with your phone. And even if it's silent, even if it doesn't vibrate or something, the screen lights up, and if it lies there, you're naturally just going to pick it up and check it. And what you can also do, if you don't want to keep it in another room altogether, you can always hide your phone, right? And this is what I do. We have this beanbag often lying on our couch, on top of our couch, and I just put my phone under there, and then it's just gone. And just the phone being out of sight makes me much less likely to actually go and look for it, because again, this comes back to making a conscious decision about things. If it's right in front of me on the table, I would just pick it up every couple of minutes to just look at it. But if it's not there, I'm not gonna do that. All right. So this was a lot of stuff. I already hope you learned something. 13 changes altogether. And again, don't worry about any links or any to the resources or any of that sort. I'm going to put that together and link to that for you guys and send out a link with the email about the replay. All right. So I just want to recap really quickly. And let me go to the chat for that one, see if anything came up. Google Soundscapes, Ambient Mixer, calm.com. Yes. There's also something for the sound apps that's called brain.fm. That's also supposed to be really good. AppSumo just did a deal with that. Okay, so quick recap, guys. Let me go back to the very first slide. So what did you learn today? Well, first of all, you learned a little bit more about me and my story with multitasking and what happened when I did multitasking versus when I did single tasking. Then we dove into the science of multitasking, like why does it happen and what happens in your brain. The more tasks you add, the more your brain has to switch around, the less power your brain has for each individual task. We also talked about why it's actually kind of appealing on the outside, that it looks good if people do a lot of different things because they seem productive, and that they kind of look like a juggler, but in reality, they don't get a lot of stuff done. Instead, they're more like drunk drivers. And for the changes we went through, we covered a whole lot of ground. We covered what you can do on a mental level with things like the collection bucket, or automating your decisions by paring them down and just making some decisions up front. We covered what you can do to actually have a cleaner workspace, how you can be more productive with tools like Noisely, or just switching your location to a coffee shop, and using tools like Cold Turkey or Self-Control app or Alfred to just block the things and remove access. With example, inbox pause. Just remove access to the things that you don't want to use that keep you from being productive.